Stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, Chairman, it has.
Thank you. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Allegra?
Here.
Mr. Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Blamar?
Here.
Mr. Mueller?
Here.
Councilman Onoha? Ms. Patel? Here. Ms. Pulowski? Mr. Spazzato? Chairman Davis?
Here.
Mr. Cornell?
Here.
Mr. Alfieri?
Here.
Mr. Fowler?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Beth. Memorialization resolution.
Tonight we have 1831-1851 Highway 35 LLC minor subdivision site plan, block 538, lots 14 and 15.01.
Thank you. Has everyone been able to review it? Any motion?
Make a motion to accept.
You weren't at the last meeting. Can't make a motion.
Sorry.
Motion. Second. So would be Mr. Allegra. Okay. Chairman Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Blamar.
Yes.
And Mr. Mueller.
Yes.
Did I not put you on the roll call?
No, you did.
Okay,
Yeah.
I did. All right, great. Thank you. Okay.
Yep. No problem.
Motion. Move the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. None this evening. Well, prior to that, we're going to do a memo from municipal clerk with regard to resolution number 2022-25, referring the redevelopment plan for the Club Pure site for the planning board review and report back to the mayor and council.
Good evening, board members. My name is John Barry. I'm a planner with Hired Grohl and Associates, and my office prepared the redevelopment plan that you have before you on behalf of the township, the borough committee, rather, council. The plan is relatively straightforward. It's the old Club Pure property. As you know, the nightclub has shut down now. The area was declared an area in need of redevelopment back in March after a presentation by Mr. Fowler to this board. And the proposed redevelopment plan really sets the stage for the development of a self-storage facility at that site. It's become a very popular use. It's something that isn't permitted in the B3 zone, but is a typical kind of use that you see in highway commercial zones all over the place. So the plan sets some standards for the self-storage facility, makes a few modifications to the bulk standards to allow for this type of facility. A little bit of increase to permitted height is really the main issue. 3 stories with 40-foot tall building is what's permitted by the plan. Parking standards, some other design standards, relatively straightforward overall. I will tell you that the redevelopment agency has been in touch with the property owner, prospective redeveloper of the site, and they had a chance to review this plan. They had 2 comments about some areas that they would like to request a little bit of change from what you have in front of you. One of those issues is with signage. They had asked for, if you look on page 20 of the plan, the signage package that they're looking for, which in my experience seems to be pretty consistent with what you see with a lot of these self-storage facilities. Had the opportunity to review a number of them in different towns over the last 4 or 5 years. But they're asking for freestanding signs up to 18 feet in height rather than 10 feet, which is what we had under 1B. Sign area of up to 85 square feet for the freestanding sign rather than 50. And then under the wall signs, they were fine with 2 wall signs. They were also asking for permission to have canopy signs. Typically there's a kind of a canopy sticking out from the lower floors of these buildings. And they're asking for permission to have canopy signs, which I don't think are going to be an intrusive thing for the highway corridor. And for larger surface area for the wall signs, up to one sign, they're requesting up to 97 square feet, the other 231 square feet. A little bit larger than what we had put in the plan originally, but as long as we have the stipulation and in the plan, the requirement that they only face Route 35, I don't think we're dealing with impact on the neighboring residents, which is the main concern here. And then the only other concern that was raised was on page 17 under the architectural standards. We had a requirement, number 3, we had a requirement that the EIFS, the engineered finishing systems, not be utilized at all in the project. They're requesting to use them on upper floors of the building, so not the ground floor. The concern with that type of material is they can be delicate, they can be fragile to impacts. And also there can be some concern about drainage if they're not, if a drainage membrane isn't properly installed. So I think if we modify that to allow for the EIFS on upper floors with the drainage membrane that makes those systems function well, I don't think it's a big concern. Aesthetically, you won't notice a difference. The concern is on the ground floor that may be more subject to cracking and things from an impact if you hit it with a hand truck or a vehicle or something. Other than that, I don't think there's any. There's one other comment about the landscaping. There's some trees along the back edge of the property that are on the property. I put in to the extent possible to preserve those trees. They said they likely would not be able to because of the need for the regrading of the site. But I think that to the extent possible, if it's not feasible, it's not feasible. And that's something that the board can review down the line when they come in for a site plan approval. So the board's task with this kind of exercise is really just to review the plan in the context of the master plan, make any other recommendations back to the council about both that issue and anything else the board wishes to raise. And I set forth some of the goals and objectives of the master plan within the report itself. And I think that, and generally speaking, promoting the economic development along the highway corridor is an important goal of the master plan. And this certainly advances that. What you really have is kind of shifting from a use that time has passed to something that's more popular, fairly passive, and a good rateable for the borough. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions from anybody.
Mr. Chairman, no comments. I've reviewed the report. No issues as far as what's being proposed.
Anyone from the board have any questions or comments?
Good.
All right, thank you.
So as he alluded to, there's a 45-day period that the board would have to review what was proposed. If there are any recommendations, we can certainly put together a resolution. If there are no recommendations, motion just to approve what's proposed, and we'll have a resolution.
Any motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Allegra,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Blamar,
Yes.
Mr. Mueller,
Yes.
Ms. Patel,
Yes.
Chairman Davis.
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks very much. Have a nice evening.
thank you. So next on the agenda for site plan subdivision hearings is Highway 9 Realty MV LLC, 927 US Highway 9 North, Saraville, New Jersey, 08872, block 411.05, lots 2 and 3.
Thank you.
I don't see a microphone.
Oh, we're gonna, yes. Okay, so, okay.
when you speak, you'll have to speak. Oh, that's what I was referring to. That's that one. Good evening, I'm John Krenzel. I'm the attorney for Highway 9. This is basically a simple application. It's a business purchased a lot next to itself. Site plan and variance is needed. No additional building is planned for the lot. There are two witnesses, Charlie Caruso and Frank Farrell, an engineer that the board is familiar with. Do you wish to swear them both in now? Okay, then. Mr. Caruso will be the first witness. They're going to swear you in first.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Calogero Caruso, Charlie Caruso,
And what is your affiliation with the applicant?
owner.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, that takes care of my first question. Your position, you are the owner. Are you also the manager?
Managing owner.
Okay, what is Highway 9?
It's a car dealership, pre-owned car dealership.
Okay, and it is there under the name of Payless Car Sales?
Under Payless Car Sales.
Okay, and how long has Payless been in business?
12 years.
And how long have you been involved?
12 years.
And how long has Payless been at its present location?
12 years.
Okay, as of now, how many employees work at Payless?
7.
Okay, what are the hours of operation?
Monday through Friday, 9 to 9. Saturday, 9 to 7. And Sunday closed.
Okay, is that going to change with the purchase of the new property?
No.
Okay, how are deliveries made?
Car deliveries?
Car deliveries, other things?
It's only car deliveries. With a tractor trailer, they come into the lot. They park in the lot, unload the vehicles, and pull out. That's how it's been the last 12 years.
Okay, and how is garbage picked up?
Standard Waste is the company that picks it up every Friday.
Okay. You have bays there. What are those bays for?
So we get used cars, pre-owned cars delivered. We prepare them for delivery. Oil change, brakes, tires, suspension, and then we put them out for sale.
Okay. Is it open to the public? Can anybody just go in and?
Yes, but we don't advertise it. Sometimes people break down on the highway. We help them out. We don't refuse anybody.
Okay. Do you know how many people come to the property on an hourly basis?
Hard to say. There are used vehicles, expensive vehicles. So 1 an hour, 1 every 2 hours. It's not something where it's like a Walmart where people coming in all day long. So.
Okay, how did you come into the property next door to the location?
The owner next door has been there 40 years, Scott. So we got friendly because he's a copy shop. So I started doing business with him because he's right next door to me. So we got friendly and he asked me one day if you want to sell it, if you want to buy this property. So that's how we ended up buying it.
Okay, and what is the plan?
Basically to expand the business next door.
Now there's a building that used to house the copy place, copy shop.
Right.
What is that going to be used for?
Office, showroom.
Are there any other changes to property?
No.
Is there anything to the present location? Are you going to change anything?
No.
Okay. I'd like to review the engineer and planner reports, just certain items there. Mr. Franco will discuss the bulk of them, but the lease agreement, there was a question, A1. The lease agreement that was referred to in the original resolution way back when. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is it still in existence?
The lease agreement is not in existence anymore because when we purchased the property, that ended. So there is no lease agreement. That was with the old owner.
Okay.
And you're going to continue to maintain that property as it is?
Correct.
Okay. A14, the consolidation of the lots. Do you have any objections if the two lots need to be consolidated?
Combined?
Yes.
No.
Okay, that's for zoning purposes. And C, we've already discussed traffic patterns, deliveries, garbage pickup, et cetera. If there's any questions, otherwise I'm going to go to Mr. Frankel.
What exactly are you going to be putting in the copy shop? You said it was a showroom?
Same thing as what we have right now. We have a showroom with salespeople. So I would add probably 2 more salespeople next door. It's basically replicating what we have now. Yeah.
The new building that has been purchased is smaller than the older one?
Correct.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions at this time, yes.
You can have cars displayed in the Bill's print shop building?
Yes.
No, it's garage doors.
Yes.
Is there one?
Say it again.
Is there a garage door to get vehicles into the print shop?
Yes.
Is it a door or actually regular doors?
They open.
The door is open,
Yes.
wide enough,
Yes.
just like you have now presently in your,
Identical.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no garage door going.
Everything.
Say it again, sir.
There's no ventilation with when you bring the car in and
I would say so. It's the same thing as next door.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is going to have to get building permits because he's modifying the interior
Okay.
to fit his needs. So the construction office would review that as part of any building permit applications.
And the car isn't being run that long inside the building. The doors are open to the outside air. So it's just.
I want to say
easier.
it's the same ventilation, if not more, because there's windows. So, I mean, there would be, I don't know what kind of ventilation we're talking about, you know, but
That'll
whatever needs to be
decided
done.
in the future.
You're not going to leave the cars running in the,
No.
He likes his employees. Anything else? Mr. Frankel? Do you wish him to go over his CV as he has appeared quite recently before you on several occasions?
just have them do a quick rundown.
Okay.
Need it for the record.
He's an old pro. Okay. Let's swear him in and I will sit down.
You swear and
evening.
affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good evening. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Absolutely. My name is Frank Farrell. Last name is Farrell. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey. I appeared here as recently as April 20th. And before that, I think it was April 4th or 6th on a number of other applications. The only credentials really that have changed is the state's mailed me my new proof of licensure since that time. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. As we've gone over, the lot is located at 927 US Route 9 North. It is lot 411.05, lots 2 and 3. The lot total, the area total, which is lots 2 and 3 again combined, is 1.82 acres. Lot 3, which is the larger of the two, for the record, this is the same set of plans that was submitted as part of the application. No alterations or other edits have been made to them. So the existing car sales, service bays and whatnot are located on lot 3. The expansion will include the use and the lot, parking lot around it on lot 2. The areas not occupied by buildings are predominantly paved parking for the storage and show and sale of cars. The vegetated areas include, I'm going to flip to the existing conditions plan. The vegetated areas on the lot include the area to the rear of the existing masonry structure on lot 3, the planter boxes or foundation plantings along the frontage of the lot, and some other very small miscellaneous areas. The uses in the area as identified in the planner's report to the north, south, and west of the site are commercial in nature. To the east is a residential area, but again, that's kind of far back on this lot. The larger of the two lots is 300 feet deep, and beyond about 150 feet, there are no structures or other improvements or significant improvements. There's a gravel lot in the rear. Access to the site is provided through US Route 9. There are two existing driveways that access or provide access rather to lot 3. And there are two driveways that provide access to lot 2. None of that is being changed as part of this application. The site is located in the B3 zone, and actually related to site circulation, there's a small 11-foot wide sort of connector aisle that connects lots 2 and 3, such that you don't need to leave the site or even enter the DOT's right of way along Route 9 to move between lots 2 and 3. So we'll go through the bulk requirements. There are a few existing variances. The front yard variance, for example, is 50 feet required where there are 34 feet proposed, and that is relative to lot 2. No changes being made there. Again, it's an existing condition that we're going to continue to ask for relief from. And the one side yard setback, which is 0.6 feet, which is again related to lot 2. The other requirements fall within the bulk requirements, and I'll run through them real quick. The lot width is 100 feet, whereas 400 feet is proposed. Again, assuming the lots are consolidated. The depth is 100 feet, whereas 150 feet is existing. Covered those two. The total side yard is 93.8 feet, whereas 20 feet is required. The minimum rear yard is 25 feet, whereas 27.9 is required. The building height is a maximum of 35 feet, and I believe both structures are less than 35-foot requirement. Maximum building coverage is 25%. The proposed is 11.8%. And the maximum impervious coverage permitted is 85%, whereas 81% is proposed. The improvements that I've described, be they parking areas or structures, will remain as part of this application. The issue at hand here is really just the expansion of the use onto the adjacent lot. There's no modifications to the water, sanitary, sewer, storm utilities that are in or around the site. There's also no impact expected to any of those. They will remain. In fact, I don't believe that this application will have any impact on the neighboring properties in any significant way. There are a number of waivers, however, that we require from the borough's ordinances. I'm going to kind of run through, there is a combination of the engineers and planners reports that have been prepared. So I'm going to run through those point by point and make sure that we cover them all. So if I'm going to go to the engineering report first, actually, I'm going to move to this other microphone. It'll reduce how much I wander. So A1 in Mr. Cornell's report, I believe has already been covered. The status of the lease agreement. Item 2 is that the location of the handicap parking stalls on the site should be further reviewed. There are 2 existing handicap parking stalls on the site. They are both in front of the sales room on lot 3. There's existing signage there. Now, I believe that there's only one that's required. We're not going to propose that we remove one, but based on the number of parking stalls that are available to customers, there are only one is required. You'll notice that there's probably 70 some parking spaces that are identified on the site. They're not all proposed to be striped. They're just sort of shown to get an idea of how many cars may be stored on the site or there for show and sale on a given day. Only, I think it's 9 of the stalls are kind of normally used for the regular parking for patrons. But again, so let's get back to the handicap issue. Those 2 stalls will remain, and I think that they're in a pretty good location. They're near the accessible entrance to that structure. A3, I agree with Mr. Cornell's comments. We can certainly adjust the layout of the parking stalls. I'm going to switch. there are 6 parking stalls that are identified in front of the building on lot 2, the smaller building to the north. Those 6 spots don't have an adequate backup aisle if they're situated at 90 degrees to the building. And as a result, we're going to rotate them so that they're angled in nature.
Mr. Chairman, basically, the original site plan for the copy shop had the angled spaces. They're actually using part of the state right-of-way as their driveway. If the layout that's on the plan was utilized, they would encroach further into that state right-of-way. So we're saying, let's go back to the original plan. The state approved that at one point. So this way you don't have to deal with the state. You're just basically putting it back the way it was.
Absolutely. In dealing with the state, actually, we go right into A4, and the need for a highway access permit from DOT for the proposed site circulation modifications to the Route 9 right-of-way should be further reviewed. It's my opinion that no application is necessary, that the permit that was issued for the site is still valid. The state, I can explain why. In access, this is right from the State Highway Access Management Code, NJAC 1647. 1.3C, it's a lot of numbers in there, but an access permit is issued to the lot or the site or the street and not to an individual driveway or even an owner. And it specifically states that an access permit remains valid even if lot ownership changes.
Mr. Chairman, I have no objection to that. My concern was if they changed the layout to be what was on the plan, that might trigger the need for an access permit. Since they're going back to what originally was approved, then I don't think it's an issue.
I agree then, and I'd hope that no formal application would be required as part of a condition. That actually kind of skips the next little bit of what I had prepared. So we can move on to A5, the requirement for sidewalks along the property frontage and around the perimeter of the site. Mr. Cornell has identified that we're requesting a waiver that is an existing condition. I agree, and I would also offer that we're not really going to encourage foot traffic, certainly not along Route 9 itself. It doesn't seem to be an appropriate place for sidewalks, so we're going to continue to ask for that waiver. The A6 is a similar waiver. It relates to the site as in it exists now without Belgian block curbing around all of the perimeter of the parking area. There's no intention to do major construction to the exterior of the site or even to the exterior of the buildings. And as a result, we'd like to have the site continue to exist in the way that it does, no curbing, and we need a waiver from that requirement. No parking in a front yard setback is A7, but again, it exists there now. We'd like to continue to use that waiver. I'll have that waiver granted. A8 requires that one off-street loading berth is required. Mr. Crusoe has testified to the nature in which deliveries are made to the site. Given his ability to control the parking and the flow of traffic on the site, he can have employees move cars and whatnot. It really isn't necessary to identify an area as a loading berth to be a designated space. He's operated the site for 12 years. He's never had the need for one and doesn't want to have to identify one at this time. A9 is that there's off-street parking areas are not to be located within 5 feet of the property line, which is an existing condition and is intensified by this application, which is true. The existing condition exists in a number of places, as you can see along the site frontage, along the site sides. The location where it's intensified is to the rear of lot 2. The other microphone as I head back over here, where it abuts lot 1.01. And down here is a sort of undeveloped or gravel lot related to, I believe is it Julian's garage, which is sort of the owner of the rest of this whole area that I'm gesturing to off the page. So it's an existing condition. It's being intensified slightly, but it's being intensified against an area that is an existing gravel lot relative to Julian's auto body. We don't anticipate that intensification would cause an issue or harm the neighboring property in any way. Hairpin type striping is not being proposed. That is accurate. We're requesting a waiver from that. Again, the spots that are identified on the plan are to show the approximate locations that cars can be showed for sales and stored for a period of time. They're not necessarily so that you or I can pull in there and park in those designated spaces. Related to parking again, number 11, A11 is the size of the stalls. Again, a 9 by 18 stall is the industry standard for parking stalls. It's also Cerevel's requirement. These spots that we're showing here are 8 by 18, and we can take that liberty of reducing the width of those stalls by 1 foot. Again, because of the control that Mr. Caruso has over the lot, he can have his employees move cars. It's not a 7-Eleven where you're driving in and you're trying to get you and your kid out of the car in a tight spot. Those spots are for the use of for sales. The stalls rather that we're proposing in front of lot 2 do conform to the 9 by 18 standard. And I believe we're going to modify those, but we would modify them to comply with the borough's ordinance for same. Being 90, we're going to rotate them off of 90 degrees. A12 is the same justification as A11. The 24-foot wide access aisle relative to 90-degree parking is a borough requirement and an industry standard. But in this case, again, the amount of control that we have over the site, Mr. Caruso can move cars off hours at different times. His employees are familiar with the area, shouldn't be an issue. A13, the requirement for sidewalks between a parking area and a principal structure. The existing paved surface will serve as the improved surface for access for pedestrians between where they would park on the site and either of the 2 principal structures. A14's been covered. B1. B1 is interesting. The bulk requirements permit up to 85% of the lot be impervious coverage, but there's a separate landscaping standard that would require at least 20% of the lot be landscaped. So since we're in that 81%, we are in line with the impervious coverage calculation, but we're actually running afoul of the landscape standard. So the vegetated areas include the landscape bed proximate to the structure and the sloped area to the rear of the building. And Mr. Caruso has actually taken upon himself to improve the aesthetics of the lot by seeding the area that is along Route 9. It used to be gravel. He's planted seed there, and he's going to maintain that area in that manner. So we're requesting a waiver from the requirement that 20% of the lot be landscaped. Again, we are actually in compliance with the impervious coverage requirement.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify,
Yes.
the plan shows gravel area. You're saying that you're going to remove the gravel and
Yes.
so that there'll be a green strip along the entire frontage. Is that
Correct.
the intention? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
A3 is related to the landscape berm in the front of the site. As I mentioned, Mr. Caruso is going to plant that area. He's going to seed that area. I'm not sure that shrubs are appropriate in that area. Site distance when we enter Route 9 is critical. And also, Mr. Caruso doesn't own that area. He's going to maintain it as is required, but I don't believe that planting shrubs here is appropriate. So we're requesting a waiver that the parking lot be screened with shrubs. It just so happens to be on the side of Route 9 where it's hard to do that.
Mr. Chairman, just for information, this is a new application technically before the board, even though the use has been there for years. This is your opportunity, if you see fit, to try to dress up the application. So basically now when you drive by, you've got to see a pavement. That's why the ordinance requires landscaping. But the applicant's engineer is correct. It's pre-existing. It's been that way for years. The frontage along the property is actually the right-of-way of the highway. It's not his property, it's the highway. And other uses have planted that strip. What happens in the wintertime is when the state plows the snow, that snow goes right on top of whatever landscaping might have been there, and it doesn't last. So it's kind of the catch-22. Your ordinance tries to encourage as much green as possible to dress up the site. This type of use, that green strip, you could require landscaping, but more than likely it's not going to survive. So just kind of giving you the background. It's really your call as to how you want to deal with it. It's been this way for a number of years in these existing conditions. It is your opportunity to try to dress up the site. Whether or not you want to pursue that is the board's call.
Okay. I think that gets us through landscaping.
B4 is related to the shields for lights to prevent offsite spillage. Shields can certainly be installed to prevent offsite spillage. I believe that the lighting plan complies with the ordinance, but if they're installed and there's an issue, we would certainly require that a shield be fitted on the light to prevent the spillage of light, as is typical and is required. I believe C1 is employees' hours of operation was already covered by Mr. Caruso. All right, that gets us through Mr. Cornell's report, I believe. Okay. Next, we're going to go through Mr. Fowler's report. Your professionals agree on a lot of items, so there's, I think, things here that we're going to sort of be able to move through a little bit quicker. The nature of the operation of the existing Payless car sales and the expansions to be described in terms of hours of operations. Testimony has been provided for that by Mr. Caruso. New deliveries, again, we've gone through the circulation for the site and how deliveries are made. Stormwater management is D3, I believe. And I'm sorry, I've actually skipped the first kind of 3 or so portions of Mr. Fowler's report, but it's informational in nature, and I believe that we're addressing his comments. I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm mistaken. Okay. D3 is the applicant is not required to address stormwater drainage on site because there's no land disturbance or additional impervious surfaces, which would require a stormwater management plan. He recommends that minor non-structural measures be instituted where possible, and asks that we discuss how stormwater is being collected and discharged from the 2 roofs. There's a drainage report or there's a drainage report that was submitted as part of this application. The very last sentence in there to sum it all up is the proposed development will not have a negative impact on groundwater recharge, stormwater runoff quality, or stormwater runoff quantity, since there is no increase in impervious coverage or other change that would affect the stormwater runoff characteristics. Stormwater from the roofs does and will continue to be discharged to grade at various locations around the building. Since we're not doing any major pavement rehabilitation or other major changes to the site, attempting to implement non-structural measures would require a certain amount of additional work be done, which is not required by the ordinance and is not really necessary for the site. I may have skipped 4. Number 4. The subject site lacks landscaping, and the applicant should discuss adding low-growing hardy plantings along the site's frontage. Along the site's frontage along Route 9, we disagree. As identified, they're not really going to last there, and Mr. Caruso is making an effort by providing grass in that area where there's gravel now. He's also planted shrubs along the front of Lot 2 where there are some planter beds, and it's appropriate in that location. It's further from the road. He can probably make sure that those plants stay alive, stay healthy, and attractive. D5, Mr. Fowler's report, is how tractor trailers can safely enter and exit the site. I believe this has been addressed through testimony, and I would ask that no plan revision be required in the resolution, just to avoid a number of revisions that may be necessary.
Point out on the plan itself.
Yes, yes.
The owner had mentioned only delivery vehicles, but if there's service going on, imagine there's trucks coming that are dropping tires, batteries, or other things also. So generally speaking, the first driveway to the south is kind of narrow, but is that where they generally enter?
Yes. The tractor trailer, I can ask Mr. Caruso to come up and elaborate, but he's indicated to me previously that tractor trailer will pull into this driveway to the south, park along the frontage of the service bays, and I imagine that he coordinates this as he needs with the availability of the service bays. The cars are then unloaded. The tractor trailer leaves through this area, and then the cars are relocated around the site as is necessary to continue the operation of the automobile sales.
That would hold true for tires or batteries or anything needed to service the vehicles also?
Should I go? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we use AutoZone and Advanced. They come with a pickup truck for the parts, and wholesale tires for the tires, they come with a van, a regular van, not a big truck. So they park right in front of the service bay, unload the tires, and they go. No problem.
D6 is related to signs, and that the ordinance permits facade signs and freestanding signs. And he indicates that the plans do not clearly address signage, but there appears to be a freestanding sign in parking stalls 23, 24, and 25 on lot 3. And that's true. It's actually a condition that you can see if you check the Google Earth aerial image for it. The distance between the stanchions for that sign permits Mr. Caruso to park an additional vehicle for show and sales purposes. Obviously, that spot is not available to the public or to patrons, but it is one of the many spots that Mr. Caruso has available to him for show. The additional information about signage is there is an existing case or frame for a sign that is north of lot 2. There's nothing on it right now. I believe Mr. Caruso's intention is to put a sign there that is fully conforming with the borough's ordinance for signage. The sign to the north of lot 2.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's going to be the same.
I wanted to make sure that I wasn't speaking out of hand.
Yeah, no, that's
okay. Number 7 is the applicant should address any facade improvements. There are none. Number 8, we agree on. Number 9, the status of the cross access drive between 2 and 3. That's that 11-foot wide aisle or drive, however you'd like to refer to it, that aisle that connects
lots 2 and 3 near but not in the right of way relative to Route 9. That will remain.
It's also not our intention to reconfigure the driveways. They serve the site now with vehicles large enough to deliver, tractor trailers large enough to deliver multiple vehicles. They're certainly adequate to continue in that capacity. Directional arrows and drive aisles at the entrance and exit should be provided. We have no objection to that. Those arrows can be shown. Number 11 is at your discretion. Obviously, it is relative to the Borough Fire Prevention. Will be provided a set of plans that we assume by the borough for review and comment. Number 12 indicates that given the dealership likely sells electric vehicles, it is recommended that at least one EV charging station be provided. Mr. Caruso has indicated to me previously that he does not currently or have any significant plan to sell EV electric vehicles and does not require an EV charging station as a result. I imagine that if he did, he would come back to install them if necessary.
That's true.
Number 13, the applicant should address the height of the retaining wall between lots 2 and 3 and whether a protective barrier is required. As Mr. Cornell has indicated, I believe as you're aware, this applications are going to require a submission to the local building department. If fencing is required, Mr. Caruso would of course put up fencing as is necessary. Recommends that lots soon to be consolidated. No issue with that. The applicant should address the purpose of the stairs leading from lots 3 to 1.01.
Which are a very small set of wooden steps that serve no real purpose at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I could tell you the original purpose was that lot 1.01 was leased by, used to be Oasis Ford for storage of vehicles. So that was the lease agreement that was questioned early on in the testimony. It was indicated that that no longer exists, but they used to go through and walk from that lower parking area up those steps to get to the Oasis Ford building. But at this point, it serves no purpose.
It's a moot set of stairs. There's no public access to that area. It's not really a concern. And we intend to leave it kind of the way that it is. And 16 and 17, outside agency approval. If necessary, we would make applications. I don't believe there are any I don't believe there are any that are required. We don't need soil erosion. We don't believe we need application to the DOT. We don't need application to the county. I think we're clear on that one. And then 17, I believe I'm performing that action right now, providing testimony, which actually concludes my testimony.
That he ran through the reasons for the waivers. I just had a couple of things, but maybe Mr. Chairman, went through my comments. On D3, and as Mr. Cornell had mentioned, that it's an opportunity sometimes when you come before the board to make things a little bit better on the site if you can. And I was hoping, as far as the non-structural stormwater, I always look for places to do little rain guards or something to collect some stormwater, especially on the site that has no stormwater facilities. Unfortunately, there were no grass areas anywhere on the site that were where you can make a depression and make some landscaping to collect some stormwater. And I couldn't even see the downspouts of some of the buildings, so I don't know where.
I think they're tucked away in the roof. Yeah, and then they likely discharge at the rear because I spent some time looking at the same thing. You don't see them coming off the front.
And again, I always think that if it just comes down and drifts on the pavement, that when you do have snowy conditions and you get sun, you get some melt, and then just little bits coming out of the downspout and it freezes, that you have issues. But again, I didn't see any opportunities for either. And I didn't see an issue with that, and I don't believe that Mr. Caruso would have put up with that condition for 12 years if it was happening regularly. And, the green area that you really have, the rear, the site slopes away from there, so it didn't seem like that was feasible to collect any stormwater, and then the front part that is actually in the Route 9 highway. There's only one area where it seemed to slope there a little bit that maybe like a little stormwater, but that's doesn't seem feasible. Again, I just always look for that if I can. Sure. And appreciate you looking. We like to try and improve the site. There really isn't an opportunity here to make a significant improvement. And on 4, regarding the low growing hardy plantings, Mr. Caruso has already planted grass along the site's frontage, which is grass is sometimes hard to maintain when you get salt on it and things than other plantings. But when I looked at the aerials, it was still gravel. Since that time, he has planted it. But I thought if you plucked up some low-lying vegetation that was a hardy native species up towards where the cars are, away from the road a little bit, it might dress up the frontage a little bit, and it might be less for Mr. Caruso to have to maintain. At some point, you're going to be out there. I don't know if if there's any kind of a system, for watering that other than somebody going out with a hose. I'm sure there is a sprinkler system out there. I don't believe but it may be something, again, where you don't have to try to work as hard to maintain it, and an opportunity for some low-lying shrub, nothing that would be in any way would create a site triangle. But again, if you look at that, I'd appreciate it. Okay. The angled spaces that Mr. Cornell had requested and you agreed to, one of the reasons I was asking about possibly eliminating the driveway, thinking of the driveway, most southerly driveway, I guess that's on lot 2, because you pull in that driveway, it's kind of hard to get into those spaces. Would you consider taking those first 2 spaces on lot 2, the furthest to the south, and making the very first space a handicap discharge area, and then a handicap space next to it, and eliminate one of the spaces on the other side? So you do have a handicap opportunity for somebody to park and access the building, for both buildings, because somebody parking, at the old Payless site who has a disability and has to get over to and into that building is not going to be easy. But then it eliminates the problem with that very first space that's hard to get into. Provides a little more room upon entrance. I have no objection to that. And I noticed the ramp there, and I thought that was a handicap ramp initially, but I guess that's a ramp that allows the cars to pull in. That's true. Part of the building. It serves both purposes. Okay. And more reasons, I guess, to have a handicap space there too. Which space? 1 and 2. Yeah, he would like one of these 2 to be in the next wall, and then for the next wall next to it. That makes sense. That first spot is very hard to pull in if you're coming in that driveway. Yeah. So, okay.
We
discharge area does help.
agree, and we can
Thank
make
you.
that modification.
And just coming to the owner with gas at $5 a gallon, you must start selling some lead. But anyway, thank you.
It's an average of 50,000 for an electric vehicle right now.
It just seems like, again, it's.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Again, I like to mention that also, because it seems like it's going to become more and more prevalent as years go by. But yeah, again, thank you. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
I've got a few questions. Just the cars, the deliveries coming in, are they in those big car carriers, you know, the ones you get behind and you're praying the car doesn't drop in front of you when you're in the highway?
Yes.
Okay, so those will be coming in on the driveway on lot 3, right? Okay. You're not going to be delivering to lot 2 through the cross-access driveway. In other words, those big carriers aren't going to be going into lot 2 at all.
No.
Okay.
No, we want them here because the service department is, we want to service them first.
Okay.
And then we should
drive them through. Okay. And what is the foot traffic going to look like between the 2 showrooms? Are people going to have to use the cross-access driveway to get to the 2 showrooms, or just where would the foot traffic be going from one showroom to the next?
Well, it depends. If the vehicle is on this lot,
Speak into the microphone so we have it of the record.
So it depends if the vehicle is parked here that they're looking for, we would direct the customer to this lot to show them the vehicle.
It would be, if they
walked,
they'd be walking, and they wouldn't have to walk through the cross-access driveway where you have potential cars going back and forth between the 2 lots?
They would walk through here.
That's the cross-access driveway?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's 11 feet wide? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up the side, wherever you want to put the sign. Anyone else have any questions?
No, but this Hall's question just triggered something else in my mind. But you had mentioned that when plans go through and they go through building review, the issue with with the wall height fencing would come up, but that may only come up if you were actually touching the wall, and then they would actually put in fencing. I'm not sure if you come into rehab the building itself, and you have any permitting before the building department will look at that. But the rear of the wall, towards the, I guess, the eastern end of the site, looks like it's got to be at least 6 feet high, and it steps down as you move towards Route 9.
Correct.
There's nothing protecting anybody from just stepping off that wall. But
that's true.
That it's something up to some height. But I don't know what the height is that triggers fencing. If it's 4 feet or whatever, but at least it's all high.
I believe it's 30 inches, and we can provide. I'm getting a nod from Mr. Caruso that we can put. I believe it's a 42-inch high fence is the minimum barrier to prevent a pedestrian from stepping over that boundary. And he's nodding that we can make that revision to the plan to include the fence along that top of that wall.
And then on the lighting, it was a comment that Cornell had. You didn't discuss it, I think, in your presentation, but you're adding 2 or 4 wall-mounted lights. I think I saw one wall-mounted light at the back of the old print shop building.
There are 4 proposed lights. They're the very dark black rectangles or squares that are located on the site here. And then they're identified with an annotation that says wall mounted light fixture A. There's 2 on the front of the building, 1 directly over the ramp that leads into the building, 1 off to the north side, I suppose. And then there's also 2 lights on the building in the rear.
The 2 on the front, you'll make sure.
I believe the requirement is that any of them that are near the property line, a shared property line, certainly with a neighbor, if necessary, they would be screened or shielded to prevent display of light.
Just even if it's making a glare out to Route 9, most of the lights all over the side are kind of spotlight. So the 2 building mounted lights on the front of that old print shop building.
Yes.
You can do some kind of screening on that.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You've heard the application and we will submit to the board.
Open to the public first.
Okay.
Motion open to the public. Motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Anyone from the public wish to speak?
They seem to be
Sure.
Entertain a motion to close to the public.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
You've heard the application and the agreements to the various aspects of the reports, therefore we submit.
Motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Allegra,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Blamar, Mr. Mueller,
Yes.
Ms. Patel, Chairman Davis.
Yes.
Application approved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, I don't have room. Process. So much. All right, this evening, old business, new business, administrative matters. We've received a memo from the municipal clerk with regard to resolution number 2022-19, referring the redevelopment plan for the former National Amusement Theater site for the planning board review and report back to the mayor and council.
Mr. Chairman, for the board's information, I think the secretary provided all members with a copy of the report. It was prepared by our office. You may recall Mr. Fowler last year went through and did a study to determine whether the property met the criteria. This is the former National Amusements movie theater. It did meet the criteria. It was sent to the council. Our office was authorized to prepare a redevelopment plan. We did that. The intention of this redevelopment plan is to have that property be compatible with what's being proposed at the National Ed site. So a lot of the uses are the same as what's proposed for National Ed. Want to point out that there's no residential component with this redevelopment plan. So where that theater is, no residential units are considered permitted uses. Pages 6 and 7 of the report summarize the different types of uses permitted: office, retail, grocery stores, educational facilities, medical specialty facilities, hospitals, assisted living, hotel conference centers, full service hotels, health, gym, spa, restaurants, entertainment uses, public uses, park and ride, open space. So those are the uses that are now proposed on that site. If this plan is approved by the mayor and council, it will become basically the zoning ordinance for that property. So once it's developed in the future, instead of following the B3 highway business zone, which allows warehouses and other uses, that's not going to be allowed. This will be the zoning ordinance that dictates what's going to be developed on the site. And again, the intention is really to tie it in with what's happening on the National Ed site. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. That's just a quick summary for you.
Thank you, Joe. Any comments?
That makes sense.
Similar, yes, we're gonna need a motion similar to what we did with the other redevelopment.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second. Roll call, Mr. Allegra,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Blamar,
Yes.
Ms. Patel, Chairman Davis.
Yes.
Great.
Harry Mueller, yes, too. That's okay.
Mr. Mueller, thank you. I know, you know what it is, I have
I was
the,
in that theater 2 days before it closed.
really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So the last Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith movie, I remember. I'm glad to see that. Hopefully something will go up there.
Should steal a lot of cars out of there.
And then the next meeting, is what, July 20th? Correct? Yeah. You don't have one the first week of July. So our next regular will be July.
20th.
And Mr. Chairman, at this time, you do not have any applications scheduled. There are a few that are pending, but at this point, I don't know if they'll be ready. So I think you may want to just keep that date open. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks.
You should keep that date open, Chairman, just because of the resolution.
Yep.
45 days.
Enough time. Today's the 15th. Yeah, that's 30. Yeah, that's 35 days. Yeah. Perfect.
Great.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Yep.
Favor?
Favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Father's Day, everybody.
Yeah.
Father's Day, yes.
Oh, it's good. Yankees are up 4-0. That's good. Thanks for